So, in this video, we are going to learn how to understand your natural brow shape and how to adjust it so it looks more balanced. This will be especially helpful if something about your brows feels a little off. Maybe the hairs are very light, or maybe there are not enough of them to clearly see the shape, or maybe they grow thick and chaotic, so you just want to organize them into something more polished. I'm a professional makeup artist, and I'll show you the method I use to analyze brow shape and build a brow that really fits your face. I'll demonstrate everything on myself. My brows have no makeup on them and I haven't shaped them in a while, so you can clearly see the natural hair growth. If you want to follow along, you will need a mirror, a spoolie, any pencil lighter than your brow color to mark the shape, and something long and thin to use as a guide. I'm using a small brush, but anything safe for face will work. Later, we'll also use any brow product to feel the shape and see how it looks. So everything is ready, so let's start. First, we want to understand how the hairs actually grow. To do that, we'll brush them in 3 directions: to the side, downwards, and upwards. When the direction changes, the brow shape changes too. This helps us to see how long the brow can be, how wide it can look, and how high or low it sits on the face. First, I brush the hairs to the side toward the temples. In this position, brow line looks calm and straight, not going down or up. My brow also looks the most narrow here because the hair length isn't adding extra width. You can also see that the starting points of the brows are the furthest apart in this position. This helps me to see how long the tail of the brow can be. So take a moment and see how this shape looks on your face. Next, I'm brushing the hairs downwards. For me, the tail of the brow naturally grows this way. When I brush the hair down, some gaps disappear and the brow looks a bit fuller. I can also see the brow angle more clearly here. But now the brow line moves slightly downward, which can sometimes create the effect of a drooping brow. Brows that grow downwards are not automatically sad brows. That usually happens when the hair are very sparse and contrast strongly with the skin. Lightly filling the space under the hairs often fixes that effect. Another thing that changes is the height of the brow. When the hairs are brushed down, the brow sits slightly lower on the face. That's not good or bad, it's just something to notice. Now let's brush the hair upwards. This gives the fluffy brow look that's very trendy right now. But here we are focusing on how your features actually work. When the hair grows up, the brow becomes wider. In my case, the front of my brow naturally grows upward. Because the middle of my brow grows downwards, brushing everything up also reveals more gaps. The brow line lifts slightly, which can create a subtle lifting effect. And the brow sits a bit higher, giving more space between the brow and the eye. Now let's compare all 3 versions. If you took photos, this is a great moment to look at them and decide which shape you like most. Usually, the best result is not just one direction, it's a mix. For example, the front of my brow grows upward. And I like that, so I keep it. But I also like the extra length when the tail is brushed slightly to the side. So I brush most of the brow upward, but soften the direction a little so the hairs move slightly toward the side. That makes the gaps less visible. And the gaps that's still there we can adjust later with the makeup. So you can do the same. Look at how each part of your brow looks in different directions and combine the ones that flatter your face the most. But before we move on, a couple of quick tips. Pay attention to the space between your brow and your eye. If your brow sits very close to the eye, brushing the hair upwards can make the eye looks more open. But if you want to reduce that space visually, brushing the hair slightly downward can help. And finally, it's completely okay if you like the natural shape of your brows the way it is. Trends come and go, but brows take a long time to grow back. So now, when we understand how the hairs grow and which direction works best, we can move on. We'll map the ideal brow shape for your face using key points. We'll find the key points of the brow and create a simple guideline you can use for makeup shaping or brow tinting. They help when the brows have no clear shape, when there are very few hairs, when the hairs are very light, or when growth looks chaotic. They also help when we are not sure where brow should start or peak. There are many brow mapping techniques, but here we mostly rely on the center of the face and to the eyes. I personally avoid methods that use the nose as the reference point because nose shapes vary a lot and they are not always symmetrical, so it's not always reliable. First, I will again brush the brows in the direction that we chose before, and this will be our starting point, the base. Now we mark 4 key points: the center of the face, the beginning of the brow, the highest point of the brow, and the end of the brow. Brows change with facial expressions, so the face should be neutral. So before we start mapping, we need to relax the face and look straight into the mirror. First, we'll find the center of the face. It's exactly between the eyes. Place the pencil here and mark the small point. This is usually when you start noticing a little asymmetry. Next, find the start of the brow. First, locate the inner corner of the eye. Then look at the distance between the center of the face and the inner corner. The ideal brow start usually sits around the middle of that distance. We also consider natural hair growth and the distance between the eyes. If the eyes are close together, the brow start can move slightly outward. If the eyes are wider apart, you can move a bit closer to the center. I personally follow where my hairs grow. My brows grow slightly differently, so I take the starting point from my better brow and adjust the other to match. The main rule: the brow shouldn't start outside this area. Now let's find the end of the brow. Find the center of the mouth and draw an imaginary line through the outer corner of the eye. Where this line meets the brow is where the tail should end. Next, we'll find the highest point, the apex. Draw a line from the center of the mouth through the pupil. Where that line meets the upper part of the brow is the highest point. If the hair growth is even, you can also mark where the line touches the lower part of the brow to see the natural width. If this method doesn't work for some reason, you can try another one. Draw one vertical line from the outer edge of the iris and another from the outer corner of the eye. The apex usually sits somewhere between them. Here's another tip. If the eye sits closer together, we can move the apex to the outer corner a little bit. But if the eye sits wider apart, we can move this point a little bit closer, and this will help balance everything. So now let's check the points. I turn the brush horizontally and use it to see the points line up. Ideally, we should see 3 parallel lines. the highest points, the tails, and the starting points. If they are not parallel, adjust the points slightly while still respecting the natural hair growth. Also, compare the height of the brow start and the brow tail. And here's one of the most important checks. If the tail sits lower than the start, it can create a drooping brow effect. Sometimes simply brushing the hair slightly upward can fix it. In other cases, a few hairs under the tail may need to be removed. But for now, we're still analyzing the shape. Once the points look balanced, connect them to create a guideline. Follow the natural width of the brow and the direction of the hair growth. When the points are connected, you should see a proportional brow shape. Both brows should stay the same width across the shape and look as symmetrical as possible. But remember, sisters, not twins. And now we need to fill the brow to see result. If you used a light pencil, fill the brow with any brow product or soft brown shadow, then remove the guideline. Once the brow is filled, it's much easier to see how the shape actually looks. At this stage, you can decide whether to remove extra hairs, adjust the brushing direction, or tint the brows. Always test the filled brow first. The shape can look very different once it's filled. If you want to preview removing the certain hairs, simply cover them with a light pencil or concealer. Okay, so this is the result I got on my brow. I filled the whole guideline evenly so the shape is easier to see. I also kept the center point so I can clearly check the symmetry. And yes, right now my brows look very bold and defined. But just keep in mind, this is not the final brow makeup. This is only the shape. When I actually do my brow makeup, the color inside the shape will have different intensity. For example, I usually keep the front of my brow much softer so it doesn't look too harsh. And overall, I prefer my brows a little lighter and more transparent than this. Alright, I hope this video was helpful and you learned how to create the brow shape that works for your features. In the next video, I'm going to show how to safely tint your brows. And in another video, we'll talk about different brow products and different effects they create. Tell me in the comments what part of your brow makeup is the hardest for you. Is it choosing the color or finding the shape? And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you will not miss my next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!